So as we are now in June, that can only mean one thing. There are a lot of free agents going around at this point in time. And for today's video, what I thought we'd do is go through some of the best players who have been released by championship clubs. So I've gone ahead and compiled them into a starting 11. And what I want to know from you guys is, out of this bunch of players, who would you like to see your club sign over the summer on a free? Also, was there a player released by your club who you were a bit disappointed to see go? But without further ado, let's hop in to these free agents. So before we do get into my starting 11, I have come up with some honourable mentions and I've put some players onto the subs and reserves. First of all, we got Stuart Downing, 34 years old now, just been released by Middlesbrough. Despite being 34, he did make over 30 appearances last season, scored 2 goals and picked up 1 assist. At the moment, it seems like Blackburn are the most interested in signing him. Evandro has been released by Hull City. Bit of a baller deep down, I think, Evandro. I think the injuries haven't necessarily helped him over the past couple of years. I think he's been out for a couple of periods. He only made 14 starts for Hull last season, but in that time still scored 3 goals and came up with 4 assists. Scored a fantastic goal against Aston Villa away. A really nice passing move from Hull. And we saw Danny Williams being released by Huddersfield Town as well. Last season he only made 1 start for them in the Premier League, so it's understandable to see why they have released him. I think he would be quite a useful player in the Championship though. I think that his last season with Reading especially, I thought he really impressed me that year. It's just since moving to the Premier League and Huddersfield, things didn't really work out for him, so I think that a second chance in the Championship might do his career some good. And the same can be said for Johnny Williams as well. A lot of Championship clubs currently chasing this guy after he decided not to renew his contract with Charlton. Now, he tried to sort of get his career back on track going to Charlton, did very well in his brief spell there. I'm sure everyone's seen the Sunderland documentary on Netflix, but he just seems like a nice guy. I think that if he does manage to stay relatively injury-free, he could go on to have a good career in the Championship. Josh McEachran's time at Brentford has also come to an end. Bit of a weird player, Josh McEachran. I remember when he was coming through at Chelsea, he was, really hyped up as one of the most promising upcoming English players. He made a handful of appearances for Chelsea in the Premier League, but since making his move to Brentford, things haven't really worked out for him. He's had spells where he looks like an absolute quality player, on the ball, very technical. When he's got his head in the game, he really seems to be able to control the play, but those sort of games seem to be a bit few and far between for McEachran. There has been quite a bit of interest in him over the summer so far though, and I'm interested to see where he ends up now. He's 26 years old, so I think this next move for him could really define what happens for the rest of his career. I'm also sad to say that Birmingham have had to let go of the absolute legend that is Czech and He spent last season out on loan, but his contract at the Blues has come to an end now. I still remember the days where it was Steve Cottrell, I think, who was playing him as an attacking midfielder, which was an interesting shout to say the least. The next one also doesn't come as a massive surprise that Wilfred Boney has been released by Swansea City. His second stint there, things didn't really go to plan. He was loaned out for the second half of last season. The thing that I'm most disappointed about really is that we're not going to be hearing this chant anymore, because it is an absolute banger from the Swansea fans.
So come on with the Boney, Swansea goes to Swansea. We go wild, we go wild.
Arguably the worst signing in Championship history, Ross McCormack has been released by Aston Villa and is now a free agent. The question I asked the general Championship fan, would you take a chance on Ross McCormack? He joined Aston Villa for £12 million, and I mean, it's safe to say he didn't deliver on anything really. There was the whole fiasco with his gates not working, him being overweight, not turning up for training. Everything went wrong for him. He had 4 loan spells out since joining Aston Villa, but finally now they paid up his contract and he is a free agent. Before Aston Villa, he was an absolute baller, While he was at Fulham, he scored some absolute cracking goals, but since moving to Villa, he's been a different player. And now at the age of 32, would you take a chance on Ross McCormack? Darren Fletcher's time at Stoke has come to an end. Not going to be a massive miss for them. He only made 4 starts for Stoke last season. At the age he is as well, I think that Stoke are now looking to reduce the age of the average squad. Charlie Adams, another player who they've also released. Paul Coots is a player who I think could do a job at a number of Championship clubs next season, really. I know that a lot of Sheffield United fans were quite sad to see him go. Since his injury and him coming back, he's perhaps not quite been the same player, but always dependable, a very solid holding midfielder in the Championship. When he played for Preston, I always liked him really. Albert Adoma is definitely going to be attracting some attention from the Championship. I'm interested to see where he ends up after he was released by Aston Villa. Aston Villa released a number of players who I think could be attracted by some Championship clubs, the likes of Glenn Whelan, Jedinak, even Alan Hutton in that list as well. But Albert Adoma, above all else, I think will be attracting quite a bit of Championship interest. Didn't have the best of seasons last time with Villa, but a goal-scoring winger like Adoma I think will be in quite high demand this summer. And then finally making up the subs bench, we got Paul Volschek from QPR. I was a little bit surprised that QPR let this guy go. Whenever I saw him play, I always think he gives them a decent option down that left or right hand side. Last season he scored 4 goals and came up with 4 assists as well, and I'd be interested to see where he ends up next. I'm also interested to know the decision to let him go, was that all on QPR or was it also on the player as well? Because like I said, I don't think he's a bad player really. But as you can see on screen now guys, there are the players who are making up the subs and reserves bench. So without further ado, let's get into my starting 11. So we'll start out in goal and then then work our way forwards for this team. So coming in goal for this team of free agents, we are going to have Jordan Archer, just been released by Millwall. Bit of a weird keeper, if I'm being honest, you know, a good shot stopper, but is prone to a bit of a clanger every now and again. It's a position where Millwall are now looking to upgrade. There are also some other decent free agent keepers, thinking of players like Frank Fielding, who was released by Bristol City, Jacola, who was released by Reading as well. But I decided to go for Jordan Archer. At the moment, it's looking like Millwall are trying to replace him with the Ipswich keeper Bartosz Bilkowski. So Millwall fans, let me know down below if you think that would be an upgrade. But I can definitely see someone going in for him during the summer. In at right back, we are going to have Moses Odebajo, the former Brentford player. A very good fullback in the Championship. I was a little bit surprised that Brentford let him go, if I'm being honest. Sheffield Wednesday seems to be one club who are very interested. A few weeks ago, we covered it on the Championship transfer rumour roundup that Sheffield Wednesday were very interested in bringing Odebajo in. He's still only 25 years old. Probably the thing that held him back during his career was his injury he picked up while at Hull City. If he didn't pick that up, then who knows the player he could have gone on to become. But still only 25 years old would be a good sign for anyone in the league. Coming in next to him, we are also going to have another player from Brentford, his Brentford teammate, Barber. Already there's been a lot of interest in this guy being available on a free transfer. Aston Villa's one club I've seen being linked, obviously with the Dean Smith link being there. Huddersfield, another club who have been sniffing around. Barber and Schindler at the back next season, I think would be a very good partnership for them if they did get that over the line. But with some Premier League interest coming in for him, you can see the type of quality he is. And the fact he is quite versatile and he can play at left back or centre back goes to show that he will be a very useful player. And then partnering him at centre back, we are going to have Joe Lynch from Queen's Park Rangers. QPR decided to release the 31-year-old. He did play the majority of football for them last season, made 35 appearances. But I think the QPR fans will be quite unanimous in agreeing that it was time to move Joe Lynch on. Swansea have had to let go of a fair few players over this summer. The next one being Martin Olsen. There's already been quite a bit of Championship interest. I think that Nottingham Forest, the latest club to be linked to the left back. And for a signing for Forest, you know, on a free transfer, I think that'll be a decent bit of business if I'm being honest. But like I say, Swansea have let go of some pretty big names. After losing their manager as well, they've really got a bit of a rebuild to go on during the summer. Then next up, moving into midfield, we are going to have Gareth Barry. Now, I was going to throw Johnny B. McKell into this position, but since he's not on FIFA, I've gone for Gareth Barry. And being 38 years old, he was actually a bit of a baller last season, I'm not going to lie. West Brom decided to release him, not offer him a new contract. Despite the age he was at, whenever he did feature for West Brom, he was probably their best midfielder, I'm not going to lie. Still very good on the ball, he broke up play very well, and I think that, you know, despite his age, he would still be a good option for someone in the Championship in my view. Next in midfield, we're going to have someone whose contract came up at Cardiff City, Aaron Gunnarsson. I believe he's off now to Qatar. I think a deal was put in place a couple of months ago, but even so, what a player he has been for Cardiff over the last, I think, 8 years he's played for them. He signed for them on a free. He's going to leave quite a void in their team. I think he's going to be a tough player to replace. An absolute battler in midfield. He's got that giant throne as well, and just look at that beard. Like I said, I think a deal was put in place a couple of months ago that he will be going over to Qatar on the free after his contract did run out with Cardiff. So the question I asked to Cardiff fans is, who would you like to see come in midfield to replace him? Next into central midfield, we're going to have Leroy Fer of Swansea. Like I said, Swansea have had quite a few outgoings during the summer so far. Bit of a weird player, Leroy Fer. When he is on his game, I think he can be a quality player. You know, over the course of the season for Swansea, he did have some pretty good performances for them, but it's no surprise to see them letting him go. You know, his injury record over the past few seasons hasn't been the best, and it's understandable to see why Swansea letting go of some of the big earners they had from when they were in the Premier League. Leroy Fer's record, by the way, with getting relegated from Premier League clubs really isn't brilliant. He's been to Norwich, QPR, and now Swansea, all three of which were relegated during his time there. So if any Premier League clubs are fancying buying Leroy Fer, I'm not sure. There's a bit of a curse going around there. And then coming in at attacking midfield, we are going to have Nick Powell, James Morrison, another one there from West Brom, who I could have thrown into the equation. Another player who has been fairly injury prone throughout his career, but available on a free transfer. It's looking very likely that he will be signing for Stoke City. I think Celtic, another club who I read a report were interested in him. He's still only 25, which is a bit surprising because it seems like a player like Nick Powell's been around for absolutely ages, but since joining Wigan, he has been a crucial player for them. In the season they got promoted from League One, he scored 15 goals from midfield. Last season scored 7 goals in 28 appearances. With it looking increasingly likely that he will be joining Stoke City, I think he'd be a very good sign for them actually. I think that if he does manage to stay fit, he'll give them a bit more creativity going forward, will link up well with someone like Tom Ince as well, and he's just the sort of player that Stoke are desperately in need of. So for a Championship playmaker on a free transfer, that'd be a good bit of business in my view. And then we move on into the forward two. The first striker is going to be David Nugent. When you think of a Championship striker, this guy's always the first person who does come to mind. As an ex-Preston player, he's always someone who I look out for. Will I take David Nugent back at this stage of his career though? I'm not so sure. Last season for Derby, he only scored 2 goals in 19 appearances. I can understand why Derby have decided to let him go, as they're trying to lower the age of their average squad, and whenever Nugent did play, didn't really fit into their style last season. The season before, however, he did bag 9 goals. I think that if the style of play is right for David Nugent, he can still be a decent player in the Championship in my view, and I think that someone will take the chance on him. He's 34 years old now, has lost quite a bit of pace going forward, so he's had to adapt his game over the past couple of years, but as a poacher inside the box, I still think he'd be an alright option for some clubs in the league. And then to finish off this team of free agents, we are going to have Gary Hooper, who has been released by Sheffield Wednesday. A bit of a disappointing one for Wednesday fans, I'm sure you know he was a bit of a fan favourite there. A very good player whenever he was fit, but that was the problem with Gary Hooper. Last season didn't really feature for them. I think he only made 4 appearances. He was out for the majority of the season with a long-term injury, and since signing for Sheffield Wednesday, I'm not sure he's ever been able to complete, you know, a full season. It's just been little niggles here and there which have kept him out of games. When he was fit and really got a run of games in the team though, he can be a quality striker in the league. His games to goal ratio in the Championship is very impressive. I'd be interested to see if anyone does decide to take the chance on Gary Hooper. He could be a real good bargain buy for someone, but as you can see on screen now guys, that is my Championship best 11 of free agents. So out of interest, who would you like to see your club sign who is currently a free agent, and has your club let anyone go who you are quite sad to see leaving? But apart from that guys, that will now wrap it up for this video. So if you're going to enjoy, make sure you leave a like. It is always massively appreciated. Make sure you subscribe for some regular Championship content, and by popular demand, enjoy the outro music, and I'll see you all in the next one.